Hi everyone, and welcome to a special bonus episode of The Sword, the Bow, and the Axe. I'm your host, Alex Rodriguez, and as always, I'm joined by my two best friends, Nathan McCravey and Stephen White. And I've caught some flack from my wife, Deanne, because she says I always say that y'all are just friends and not my co-host. So is this a justified critique, or what are y'all's thoughts on that?
I'm not prepared for the responsibility of being a co-host, so I'll claim the title of friend. I'm just a
Okay.
friend here for the fun.
Okay. Stephen, you too?
Yeah, same. Because if I say I'm a co-host and he's just a friend, then it's really weird. Because that just
Okay.
means we have Nathan on and interviewing him the whole time. So listen, you can't have two co-hosts and a friend. It just doesn't work. You either have them all
Yes.
or there's
Yeah.
nothing.
And I refuse
All
to
or
be a
nothing.
co-host. I'm just
Well,
here for the fun. So
I thought we talked about it in episode 1, but I guess not. So okay, we got that, killed that, slay that. Awesome, sweet. Moving on. All right, so this bonus episode, you might have guessed it from the title or the brief description. It's going to be all about J.R.R. Tolkien, and specifically his most famous works, The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogies. So for those who aren't big enough nerds like us, the September 22nd is officially Hobbit Day. And that's because Bilbo and Frodo share a birthday on September the 22nd in the books. And so that makes this the official Tolkien week. So we figured since our podcast name is inspired by Lord of the Rings, why not do just a fun episode talking about it? So this might go off the rails and end up somewhere not even talking about Middle Earth, but let's just see where it goes.
there's no might about it. That's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
I just
So
want to say for the record, Alex says we're really big nerds, but I just found out it was Tolkien Week like 2 days ago. I had no idea it was Hobbit Day. That's how much of a nerd I'm not on this. However, I do love some Lord of the Rings and Hobbit. I've read the books. I've watched the movies. I've sat through the movies, at least the recent ones. So this will be fun because I like chopping it up with you guys and talking about movies, epic things.
So maybe I'm
So
just a big nerd. I mean, I have a Lord of the Rings tattoo, so
yeah, I think that
pretty
settles the
nerdy.
Do
matter.
you have Lord of the Rings Legos too?
I do. Yep.
Okay. Yep.
I actually have a Lego version of Bag End and
Did you
of Helm's Deep.
purchase a special edition of Lord of the Rings from a bookstore that has all the volumes in one? That's like
Uh-huh.
gold leaf plated and
Yep. Yeah,
has
I did that. Actually, I
yeah.
have that. I have the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and then I have the Silmarillion in that same collector's edition and the Hobbit. And then Caleb Shannon, shout out. I helped him run some cable in his house, and he bought me the what's that fancy book company? Like the leather bound books.
Easton Press.
Easton Press. He bought me the Easton Press version of The Hobbit. So it's like this sick green leather bound book with gold like pictures and stuff on. I don't know, it's pretty cool. So shout out to him.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Yeah, I'm a nerd. It's, it just is what it is. I'm in IT. What do you want?
That's
from me?
why you're the host and we're just friends.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so I'll just start us off with a question, and then we'll just see where it takes us. So for those who are listening who may not know, one, if you don't know this, shame on you. But they turned the books. So Tolkien wrote these books in the 40s and 50s, and they turned them into movies. So the question I have for you, and the Lord of the Rings movies are some of the most successful movies in terms of Hollywood from like an Oscar award winning perspective and stuff. So really good. The Hobbit movies are trash. Don't watch them. So what is one difference from the books and the movies that you just can't get past? Like there's one thing that you're like, why did they choose to do that? Like, and you're kind of frustrated about it.
I thought we were ending with the movies. We're starting with the movies?
Oh, no. We're talking about the differences that you can't get past between the books and the movies.
I feel like that's the same thing.
We have no clue where this is going.
Well, what can't you get past?
I
In the Hobbits. specifically. Go ahead.
In The Hobbit or in?
No.
in-
We're not even going to talk about those movies. Those movies are garbage.
Okay.
Lord of the Rings
All right. Lord of the
specifically.
Rings. All right. I mentioned this the other day, but this is what comes back to me. It's Aragorn's whole persona. Like, he's a good character in the movies and he's fine, but he's a totally different character than he is in the books.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
in the movies, he's very brooding and secretive, and he's kind of a man that doesn't want what fate is given him. That he's supposed to be the king of Gondor, but he really doesn't want to be that, and so he kind of goes begrudgingly, and it culminates in the scene in the Return of the King where Elrond has to convince him to take up Narsil and to become the king of Gondor.
Yeah,
But
that
in the
was
books, it's like from the get go, he knows what his role is. He
he has
gets the
Narsil
sword.
from the movie.
That's right.
Yeah.
He gets Narsil. He knows what his charge is, and he goes in headlong, and he takes on all the responsibilities of king from the very beginning. Now he's shrewd about it, but he's a man on a mission from the very get go. And so I watched the movies before I read the books, and so whenever I found that out, and I went back and watched the movies again, that was something that really didn't sit well with me. Is they totally flipped his character on its head. I get why they did it, but I didn't appreciate it.
So let me just correct y'all. So he takes up the sword. The sword's name is Anduril. It's forged from the shards of Narsil that cut the fingers off of Sauron. So,
I'm going to clap. I'm going to air clap for you right now. You can't do it, but I'm clapping. Just know that is a clap, air clap. Slow clap, air clap.
You use so many Tolkien names in those sentences that someone who is on the verge of not listening to this episode just said, I'm out. I'm out. That's too much for me.
Shame on you. You should go.
Hey, if you're sticking around at this point, then you're a true fan of the show then.
Truth.
Well, and the ones that are true fans of Lord of the Rings just said, I'm out. They didn't even know what it was.
Yes, we made everybody mad.
These losers are dumb. They don't know what the heck they're talking about.
Well, my phone's name is Anduril. So
is it really?
Yeah. So if you're searching through Bluetooth devices around me, you'll find Anduril floating around.
Could do that.
Yep.
Man.
All right. What about you two?
Steven, you go. I've talked enough already, but I got one.
And what I couldn't get past. All
right, I'll let you think about it. I'll go. So
yeah.
I've been listening to Fellowship of the Ring again, and I think the character of Glorfindel, and like I just got done listening to the part where Frodo gets stabbed at Weathertop, and in the movies, it's like this gross, not gross, but just this love story between Arwen and Aragorn that gets like overplayed, and they see each other, and she takes him, across the river and through the woods to Rivendell, and away from the Black Riders, but like Glorfindel is the one who kind of aids them there, and he comes from Rivendell because Elrond sent them because they were supposed to be there and they're not. So, and then in the Two Towers in the books, when they go to Helm's Deep, Glorfindel is the one who comes with Gandalf at the end. And in the movies, he's there the whole time and dies, and tragically and all that stuff. So it just, I don't know, like that. I feel like that's a big shift, like to totally kind of take him out of. I don't even think they call him Glorfindel. I think his name's Haldir in the movies. So it's like total character swap. Yeah. I guess Glorfindel wasn't a cool enough name for them or something.
Aramir's not the one who comes with the Riders of Rohan, even though that is the most epic scene in all three movies.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, he's there the whole time. He's at Helm's Deep the whole time. Éomer is. So, anyway, just as I'm listening to it, I'm like, man, why do they take this guy out? But it is what it is, I guess.
Movies, man. I will say though, for all the things that maybe we have trouble getting over, to be able to put Tolkien to screen, I don't envy Jackson for that job. Peter Jackson had to do something that no mortal had tried before him. It was like, and it's just
they had.
really
They just done it in cartoon version.
Oh,
they
They
did.
oh
j-
my gosh.
Which you can get away with so much trash in the cartoon versions. You
uh-huh.
can just be like, what do details matter? Let's sing some songs and let's skip a few things. And one thing led to another, and they could just kind of winkle toe along. And so I will say I thoroughly enjoyed Lord of the Ring movies because
Mhm.
I think it touches into my childhood. I watched them when they came out in theaters. I could still remember going and getting really hyped. My dad had purchased a box set of the books before the movies came out because he was pretty determined to read these that he had neglected, and he had like, man, I've always wanted to read these, and now the movies are coming out, so I'm going to read them. So he blasted through them, and he gave them to me, and he says, you need to read the first one before we go see it. And I struggled. I'm not going to lie. I struggled at 11, 12 years old to get through Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship. I mean, Tolkien's writing in the 50s. The English is just
He's talking
for an
about
11-year-old.
being queer
I'm
and
like,
gay, totally different context.
well, and I'm just like, and the pace of the book, it's a pretty slow book at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yep.
does a ton of character building and world building, and the action's there at times, but it doesn't really climax to any good action. Like the movies do a better job at least giving you action in the beginning and trying to pace yourself through it. But the books are are very much a long haul. You got to sit in it and just strap yourself in and say, "Okay, I'm going to get through it because I need to be immersed in this world." And it wasn't until I got a little older that I was like, okay, I think I have the attention span to sit down and actually eat this the way it's meant to be eaten. And that's when I think and I had already seen the movies, so I was like in the story. I was like, yes, this is an epic story. Let me get in these books. And kind of like you, Nathan, I'd read the books after watching the movies, which, shame on me. But again, I came of age when these movies were popular, and so I think I was not a
Yeah.
sanctified saint, in
Oh
terms
one, oh
of
two,
my
oh three.
ability to sit
Boom,
through a
boom, boom.
book. I'm still trying to figure out how to read my Bible every day. Like, much less read a 1,000-page trilogy. So
I think it's 1,000 pages like per book. Feels like it,
I
anyways.
don't know.
It's a lot. Yeah, I think that one of the other things that I've just kind of realized is like the character of Frodo in the book, in the Fellowship. So it does do a lot of character building, and I think a lot of that's introducing Frodo, who he is, his relationship to Bilbo. He gets he's got the Took in him. He's the nephew, and he gets the heir. Bilbo chooses him to be the heir, and there's just like this. The rest of the Tooks and everyone else are Brandy Bucks and whatnot. They're all kind of like mad at him that he gets the treasure under the hill. Um, but he's actually, I mean, he asks a lot in the book. He asks a lot of just good questions and is genuinely curious about things. And I feel like in the movie, he just kind of like especially in the beginning, he gets stabbed, and then it's just this like walking. I don't know, just kind of like a sissy. It's kind of way I feel like he is. Um, but in the book, he seems like he's got a purpose and hey, this is where I'm gonna go, and even whenever he's in the Barrow Downs and stuff, and so just kind of a big, I feel like a big difference. Frodo doesn't really show that in the first movie of like this kind of courageous and smart person, but anyway.
Yeah. So thinking about the books specifically, like what characters in the books, not comparing them to the movies, but like what characters in the books stick out to you, um are what traits, what qualities stick out that you admire, and maybe how those have shifted over time. So I'm assuming that we've each gone through the books at least a few times each. So like different read throughs, what characters meant more to you in those times you went through it?
Yeah,
You want to
I
go,
think,
Alex?
yeah, yeah. Well, did you ever say what your thing was that you can't get over?
No,
You,
because I mean, honestly,
I
I
can't
don't
think of
know.
one.
Here's the 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 scene of Frodo at the Barrow Downs when he's cold stone dead on this flat stone, and he's getting this vision of all of his friends dead because he was taken off the path
Mm-hmm.
and lured into this place of death, right? And then gets rescued, uh, waken up and rescued out of it. Um, those are some significant times early on that you're like, well, that's a big scene in the
Mm-hmm.
books. And the whole story of Bombadil, which you'll get into, Alex, because before the show you were talking about your theories on Bombadil, so we'll let you jump in on that. But there's a whole scene in character development with Bombadil and the hobbits early on in their journey that kind of helps them as they run from these wraiths, these evil shadow kings, uh, these walking dead men, and they're running from them, but they've kind of put everything in perspective early on of how dangerous a task this is and what they must do as they entered Bombadil's house. They're kind of given that perspective of what do they have to do to succeed in this task, and that's glossed over. It's not even mentioned in the movies. Nobody knows
Mm-hmm.
about it unless you go read the books.
Yep.
And it really sets up the whole adventure, and it helps you see into the Hobbit's mind. That's their first wake up call of like, oh, this isn't just going to be a stroll to Rivendell. This is going to be a fight to the death, and evil is on our tail. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I
Maybe
mean,
maybe it is
they go
something.
through. They meet Farmer Maggot. They escape him there with Farmer Maggot in the books. And he's like a friend to him in the book, whereas in the movie they're like running through his cornfield, and he's like, "Get out of here!"
Yeah, he's just
Um,
a voice of an angry farmer.
yeah, yeah. And then so they have that. They have the Barrow Downs. They have Tom Bombadil. There's like the whole first part of the book, like really the first half of the book, is about their journey just to get to Rivendell. Whereas I feel like in the movie it's like 30 minutes. It feels very condensed, and maybe it's longer than that.
Yeah,
It
they
just
got
feels
a
very
long way to go.
condensed. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't
So
want to throw too much shade at Peter Jackson. The dude did something that I don't think is just super hard to do, you
sure.
know. And he did it in one movie. When people today would probably say, "Well, the Fellowship of the Rings, Part 1, Part 2,
Yeah.
Part 3,"
Yeah. 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 Right.
milk this cow for what it's worth. But
I'd watch those.
so yeah, I'd watch those.
I'd watch all three.
Uh,
So okay. So Nathan's question. Just let me make sure I remember it.
Yeah, so pulling away from the movies, in your times you've gone through the books,
Yep. Yep.
what characters have stuck out to you? Why were they significant? And has that changed in subsequent times of going through the books?
Yeah. I think I hear in like Gandalf throughout the. I don't know. He reminds me of this. He goes away and comes back a lot, and I think as I've grown in the Lord, grown in my faith, I kind of like equate it to Jesus a little bit, where it was like he'd have the disciples and he'd gather them up, and then he'd go, "All right, I'm going to go away." He's going to go to be with his Father. Now, obviously, I don't know what Gandalf's. You don't always necessarily know what he's doing, but there's a sense in which he goes, "Okay, I'm telling you about this big scary adventure you're about to go on, Frodo, and oh, by the way, I'm leaving you, but you'll figure it out." And it's kind of the same thing even in The Hobbit, where they're in the Misty Mountains and they come out of the Misty Mountains and then I think they go up in the trees and stuff, and they go to Beorn's house and he leaves them at Beorn's house, and then you don't see him for a while, and so they're just I don't know, just thinking about that, and he's got these like one-liners and sometimes just like really good wisdom for whoever is in his party, whether that be the dwarves in the Hobbit or the Fellowship as a whole in the Lord of the Rings books. So just kind of something that I'm like, I wonder if that's like something Tolkien was thinking about, or if that's just me going, because I'm reading through the Gospel of Luke right now, just in the mornings, and so um, just how Jesus would often go and leave them and to be by themselves, and then obviously he ascends once he has risen. He ascends and says, "Go, and the power of the Spirit's going to be with you," right? So, and it's going to be better because you're going to have the Helper. So, I don't know.
It strikes me how reminiscent that is of Aslan in the Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah.
Like he flits in and out, and people are always talking about, well, why doesn't
Yep.
he stay? Well, he's got other things he's got to take care of, but he'll be back. And then,
Yeah.
but every time he comes back, he's always reminding the kids, well, I never left you.
Mm-hmm.
Like you didn't see me. Like we're reading through Voyage of the Dawn Treader with the boys. We do that before bed. And Aslan, towards the end of the book, he tells Lucy, she asked him about where he's been and all that. And he said, well, I've been here the whole time, because she says this incantation that's supposed to make invisible things visible. And he shows up and he tells her, I've been here this whole time. You just couldn't see me.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's not what this podcast is about, but that struck me as reminiscent of that kind of a character that's going back and forth and in control of the situation.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
Stephen,
that's
what about
good.
you?
The character that I always thought of as a definitely misrepresented or at least not given a full due in the movies that the books give him, and it's really a noble character, especially toward the end, is Faramir. And Faramir in the books, well, let's say in the movies, if you've only seen the movies, you think of Faramir as this weak kind of second born who's really struggling and vying for his father's affection. And it kind of seems like he just doesn't have assurance of himself. And that's kind of how they carried him through the movies. And I feel like that's just gross misrepresentation of his character. So in the books, uh, he's the captain of the guard of the armies of Gondor, and he knows his brother is Boromir at the time is going to be the Stuart's heir. He's the warlord leader. But Faramir doesn't for one second doubt his abilities or his station as being the captain of the guard, and that being a very righteous thing in terms of his ability to protect Gondor and push back the enemies and all that he's been doing, and his statement to Frodo when he's confronted with taking the ring. So again, this is a big theme in the whole movie and in all the books. This ring is pulling at their attention. Hobbits, dwarves, men, elves, and only certain people have the power to resist it, right? I mean, even Gandalf's like, "Don't tempt me. Like, don't tempt me with the power of the ring." Galadriel, same way. She passes the test. She can go off, into the whatever she says, and that whole weird scene in the movies, which is different in the books too. But here comes Faramir, and he's got Frodo right here at his doorstep. He's got him in custody. He could take the ring by force. And Frodo says, "Would you take it from me?" And he says, "No, I would not." And so does Aragorn. Aragorn says the same thing. But he has a line in there that says, I'm going to butcher it, but he says, "I love not the sword for its shine, or the shield for its glitter, or the arrow for its swiftness. I only love that which is meant for it to protect," or something like that. Like, I only love that which is that it's meant to protect. So here's a man who knows his place. He knows he needs to go make war on the enemies of Middle Earth and things that are, and it's a righteous thing. He does that. But why does he do it? He does it because he loves what's behind him. He loves the things that are behind him that he's put in to protect. And what a good reminder for us to be loving the things that we're protecting, and to be putting ourselves in the position of being in between, right? That's what our job is as men. Be in between the spiritual forces of darkness and the things we're called to protect. So you could allegorize that and spiritualize it, but in the books themselves, he plays that really neat character of a man who knows his position, knows his assurance, knows what he's fighting for, and he has control. He has self-control over his lust for power, and he kind of, he's got that in check. And so I think that's a great character to try to emulate. And in the book, I mean, the movies just kind of wash over it. He's not that at all. So
Well, in the
anyway.
books too, and it's been a while since I've been through Return of the King, but he pretty quickly throws his allegiances behind Aragorn, doesn't he? Like,
Oh yeah.
so I mean, in some sense, he's kind of Denethor is kind of like Saul. Faramir is kind of like Jonathan. So Denethor has the authority of the king as the steward, but he's not the rightful king. Aragorn is, but his son Faramir, he knows where his allegiances ought to lie. So he loves his father, but he says no. Aragorn's the king. So anyway, I love the imagery there that Faramir, he's a high-ranking official. He's got honor in the city, but he knows my allegiances need to be with the true king of Gondor. Yeah. And so that's just a cool picture you see there in that. I think for me, so having seen the movies first, obviously I was drawn towards Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli, these warriors, these characters who defeat all the orcs. I mean, those were the things that drew me. But I remember distinctly going through the books one time as an adult and getting to the end of the books and realizing I think my favorite character in the books might be Theoden. I love Theoden in the books. Like he's at first he's a king who's been deceived. He's weak, he's feeble, but then Wormtongue is dispelled and his mind is cleared and his health is restored. And I love how the people of Rohan love their king. Like they give everything for their king. So much so that when Merry shows up, he's caught up in it. He loves Theoden too. And so he's so distraught whenever Theoden's like, hey, this battle will not be for hobbits. And so he's left at home. It's not, in the movies, it feels like Merry's sad because he doesn't get to go fat with his friends. And that's part of it in the books. But in the books, part of the motivation that Merry has is he wants to fight for Theoden. Like Theoden's his king, his liege. And so, whenever he then has to experience Theoden's death in Return of the King, like it's this grieving experience because he's thrown his heart towards his king. And so anyway, I read it that time and was like, man, Theoden might be my favorite character. Like just because he's this king that turns from his own ways, leads in nobility, leads in sacrifice, is the front of the army. He dies, not just protecting his own land, but protecting, the free peoples of Middle-earth. And anyway, he's just an excellent character.
Yeah. Amen to that. I love that scene and just the imagery. The movies did it well. When he grips that sword, then all that old age starts to fall off. He becomes, because Gandalf says your strength will, your hands will find their strength again when they've grasped your sword. And just understanding like, hey, you got to take charge. You've got to have some dominion. There's a good theme in the Lord of the Rings. Take dominion. But it is Hobbit Day on the 22nd when this episode drops. So I guess today we're not recording this on the 22nd. Spoiler alert. However, what about the Hobbits? So the Hobbits are central characters, yet we've talked a lot about these peripheral characters, but they're central too. There's so many characters. What about these Hobbits that maybe tracing their characters through the books impacted you the most? Which one maybe do you resonate with? Because I think those characters are intended, I think, for the readers to really immerse themselves in even more than some of the others.
Yeah, I think going back to talk about Lord of the Rings a lot, going to the book The Hobbit. So Bilbo, he's the burglar, and so he's trying to prove himself the whole book, essentially, up to a point anyway. That to these dwarves that he's the burglar that he claims to be, that Gandalf really kind of claimed him to be. And so it's all these different trials that they face, and the dwarves always, it feels like they're always getting themselves into these things. And then here's the little hobbit, the guy who's shorter than the dwarves even, and he's always kind of getting them out of stuff. And so I don't know what to make of it, but you have one of the smallest characters who's so often they, people look down upon them and they call them halflings and all those kinds of things. And yet Bilbo's the guy who goes and he stabs all the spiders, and he, the sword gets named Sting, and he goes and has the courage to go and talk to Smaug in the Lonely Mountain. And even Smaug's like, I don't know your smell. I don't know where you're from. So there's like this unknown thing about him. With the trolls, and whenever they get all at the very beginning, when they get all stoned up, I don't know how to say it.
That in your back pocket
People who've not read the books or seen the movies, they're like, "What is he talking about?
Yeah,
Trolls getting stoned."
So I totally forgot this, but in the Fellowship of the Ring, they go back and they find the trolls.
In the movies?
No, in the books.
Well, they do it in the movies too.
Do they?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Like I mean, if you've never read The Hobbit, it makes no sense. But it's after.
In the Fellowship of the Ring, in the book, they have to go. Yeah. They have to go north into the land of the trolls, and Aragorn's like, I don't know these lands, and they actually come upon the 3 trolls that were in the Hobbit.
Yeah, that's in the movies too.
Do they really?
Yeah. So it may be an extended scene, but it's after Frodo's been stabbed. They're trying to take care of him. Aragorn sent Sam to go get the herb, Kingsfoil, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then like Frodo's laying in the middle of this little patch, and I think it's Merry who tells him, "Hey, look, it's Mr. Bilbo's trolls."
Oh,
and you turn around and you see these stone trolls like in this little glaive area.
Huh. I guess I've never seen that.
It may be one of the extended editions. I don't know.
Okay. I'll have to get that. I have the Blu-ray.
I'm totally not making this up, right? Steven?
That sounds legit.
No, you're not. It's in the extended editions.
Okay.
You gotta go back and watch them. Who are
maybe, I thought maybe I dreamed this or something.
Even like Lord of the Rings.
That's cool. Yeah, because I was listening to it today, and I'm like, oh man, that'd been really cool to put in the books, but I mean in the movies, but anyway, finish that.
Peter Jackson thought the same.
He did, yeah. So anyway, and then he helps him escape. Bilbo helps him escape from the elves, through the barrels, and just kind of his craftiness of how that whole thing unfolded and everything. So I don't know. There's just the guy who's kind of you think about humble and lowly and looked down upon and all that, and he's the guy who's kind of getting the dwarves, out of all these different situations. So
yeah, and even then, like in The Hobbit, like Bilbo's a main central character, but he's not the. And it's funny. It's like you read the book and you're like, so who's the hero of the story?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like that might be a good question to ask. Like in The Hobbit, who's the hero?
Bard, the bowman.
He's one of them.
Yeah, you may say Bard. Yeah, he's one of the heroes.
But he's got so little press. Like he's so just little. Mentioned basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the article we read mentions that it's important that a man kill the dragon, and I think Tolkien's trying to throw in some themes about the dwarf doesn't kill it, the hobbit, the wizard, the elf, but a man slays the dragon. Maybe bringing back some biblical themes. Although Tolkien hated allegory, and so he wasn't, I don't think, trying to. He did. He writes it in his introduction. Go read the introduction. He says, "I loathe allegory." So I don't know how him and Lewis were very good friends.
That's what I was going to say. I'm like,
I was reading the Narnia Chronicles, and he's like, "Oh, Clive, how could you?" He's probably in this British accent, like, "Clive, I'm gonna go over. We're gonna smoke a pipe, and I'm gonna tell you how much I loathe your books about allegory."
I'm gonna write one that's similar.
Well, if he hates allegory so much, which I've not done much of the history behind Tolkien, but there's so much that's there.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, whether he intended to be or not.
Right.
But this is where the true story always shines through, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a devout Roman Catholic, so he was very. You can't divorce your faith from what you're writing, and he did try to, because his world is a very Christian world in terms of, even though Christ isn't mentioned, the New Testament's not mentioned, apostles not mentioned, it's outside of that realm. It's still very much a realm that's been given shape by a designer and a creator, and it's been given direction, and there's good versus evil. good must prevail. It does prevail. There's a eternal dwelling to look forward to. There's something greater. There's something that's inherent to the world too, that's in the Shire, that's worth protecting. There's some goodness that's worth holding on to. It's very Christian.
Yep.
And a lot of pagans try to hold on to the Lord of the Rings and be like, oh, no, we just love the wizard lore and we love all the dragons and give us all that. And they're just totally oblivious to the fact that, guys, you can't have all that and not see the reality that's in front of you in the story itself. Like, you can't just borrow the characters and the themes, which they do all the time, and forget the whole story and the whole story arc. So
that's a good lead in, Stephen. You mentioned Tom Bombadil earlier. So you guys don't know what I read this in the omnibus, but so I'm kind of stealing it from that, but I like it. I like the theory. So in the Silmarillion, in the origin of Middle Earth, you read it, and if you've ever read your Bible, it is like the same story, but with weird Middle Earth names instead of God and angels and Lucifer and stuff. And so Tom Bombadil is this guy he's not in the movie, so just in the books, and apparently one episode of this new series on Amazon. But Tom Bombadil comes along. It's like chapter 7 of the book. It's called In the House of Tom Bombadil. He comes and saves the hobbits. They stay with him and Goldberry and for a couple days. And he says that he always has been. He was there before creation, was there before everything was made. And I think he was one of what Tolkien calls, they're like the Ainur. Ainur. There you go. The Ainur. So they're like these angelic beings that existed before Middle Earth was created. And just the way that Bombadil describes himself, I think that may be a compelling case for who he is or where he comes from, because I think it's in the books where they're at the Council of Elrond and they're talking about where the ring should go, and I think it's Gandalf who says we should take the ring to Tom, but they ultimately decide not to do that. And why would they take it to him? Because he's got this power, and he's seemingly got he's got dominion. Talking about dominion over the area that he's in Middle Earth. And so anyway, I read that and I was like, oh, that's really compelling. Like, he's one of the angelic beings that was there before Middle Earth was created, and he witnessed the fall of what was his name? I can't remember the
Morgoth.
Yeah, Morgoth. There you go.
So to get just really, really like nerdy here. So the god Iluvatar of the earth, his name is Iluvatar. He begins to create things with song, and there's his angelic host are with him, these Ainur.
Uses his words. My God.
And so Iluvatar begins to sing creation into being, and the Ainur join in with the song. And so he's giving them an opportunity to help and be a part of creation, and so they have their own part to play. And so that would make sense, because Tom Bombadil seems to have power over creation. And so it's kind of like if he's saying that he was there at the beginning, well, then this is still like he's still exercising the power given to him by Iluvatar. So that would make sense. So I'm gonna add mine and say yes. I think you're right. That sounds good.
Well, I got it from Omnibus, so that's the curriculum that Leah and them are going through at ACA, and I was like, that checks with me, because I think he even says, like, Bombadil even talks about the things that he has power over and the things that he doesn't. So he's not God and he's not Jesus, because he's not all powerful, but he does have these powers that like other characters don't in the book. So
that like not even Gandalf has.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the end of the Return of the King, and he says, "What are you gonna do?" And he says, "Well, I think I'm gonna go have a long talk with Tom Bombadil." And he says, as he's like, "What are you gonna do now, Gandalf?" And he's like, well, I think I'm gonna go west, and me and Bombadil are gonna have a long talk. I was like, yep, I would love to be a fly on the wall as Gandalf and Bombadil talk stories about Middle
Tom
Earth.
Bombadillo.
What I'm struck by, and this is somewhat going back to the question that you asked earlier, Stephen, about the hobbits, is like how valuable peace is in Tolkien's world. Like you think about the hobbits, like they're in at the very beginning of the Fellowship, he's got this whole chapter called Concerning Hobbits, and just getting into the background of what the hobbits are. And the reason they're commendable characters is because they're people who enjoy the things of the earth. They enjoy one another. They live in kind of this idyllic, peaceful state, which he ends up saying they kind of let their guard down. But then whenever you meet all these other characters and these commendable characters, these characters you're supposed to be as heroes, you're supposed to see as heroes, all of them are aiming to restore peace to Middle Earth. Like those, so there's this constant thread of returning to peace, returning to a shalom type Edenic situation. And so, I mean, it's just, again, pointing back to the big story of what the story we're living in is bringing us back to. It's aiming at restoring us to peace, not of floaty in the sky type peace, but like, thinking of the hobbits and the probably the most famous, like, and they loved good tilled earth. It's a very earthy peace, to enjoy creation, to enjoy the space, the domain that we have, and it be fruitful, and it be something that we can create something with. And anyway, like those themes, as I get older, just become more and more prominent, such that even if I were to go to through the books today, I'd say, I don't want to be an elf. I don't want to be a dwarf. I don't want to be a man. I want to be a hobbit. Like, if I'm going to be a character in the book, I want to be a hobbit, because they enjoy the earth. They take care of it. Like, they enjoy the people around them. They're super hospitable. They've got great community. Like, I want to be a hobbit. Hairy feet and everything.
Yeah, it makes me think of Ecclesiastes, honestly, when Solomon is talking about, enjoy the wife of your youth and eat and drink and be merry, And I think of that scene at Bilbo's birthday at the beginning of Fellowship, where it's his 111th birthday. And that's what they're doing, man. They're like, they're just having a good old time, and they're drinking ale, and they're dancing around, and they're eating fatty meats, and setting off fireworks, and so they're kind of just enjoying the things that they've been given.
Which is,
go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Oh, so you're good. Even in the simpleness, right? Like they're in their simple life, they're finding joy in the simple things, and it doesn't have to be this big extravagant thing.
And I would say, though, even then, so in the beginning of the book, you see all that happening, and yet there was a lot of development that needed to happen in order for that to really take on, I guess, better meaning. So here's what I'm thinking when I read the books. We go from the Shire, everything is kind of happy-go-lucky, but it's almost a childlike, like, you're given a peel back behind the curtain when you know that what's looming in the east is a brewing darkness and war and struggle, and the Shire knows nothing of it. And we're tempted to think, oh, that's really desirable. And yet we shouldn't want to desire the retreat into the Shire as much as we should want to have a Shire-like freedom extend into the rest of Middle Earth, right? And so, like, there's things worth going and fighting for. And the hobbits had to figure that out. And that's why they were pushed out into this adventure by Gandalf, is they had to go. Gandalf was like, I'm not satisfied with you not being a part. And I think there's this really touching scene when Mary's talking to the Ents, right? And they said, yeah, we're actually not going to go fight. And he says, but you're part of this world.
Yeah.
Right? They say, no, it's not our fight. And there's like, but you're part of this world, and there's things worth fighting for.
Yeah.
And don't you remember that you're part of this whole thing? You don't get the option of neutrality. You don't get the option of sitting back in the Shire. And it's funny when they actually go and fight and win, in a losing cause, right? They go fight in a losing cause and actually don't lose. Uh, they come back, and they come back as lords of the Shire, right? They come back as royalty, but nobody else knows. And actually, in the books, this is funny because in the books, the Shire is overtaken by tyrants, right?
Yeah.
By wimpy, vassal tyrants who are just, they're terrible, and they've got everybody in fear, thinking that they can just run their lives. That they have to. It's a retelling of our world, if there ever was one. In the whole chapter at the end of the Fellowship of the Ring, the Scourging of the Shire is super.
Return of the King.
Just go back and read that, the Scourging.
Yeah, it's in Return of the King.
The Return of the King. And the Scourging of the Shire is probably one of those chapters. You just go back and read it even now and just be like, wow, you're right. That is a nearly a really good analogous insight into where we're living in today, and what it takes to say no. We're not going to just obey your rules because you say you're the king. You you demand obedience, and they say, you can't be out after dark. Well, why not? Oh, because we have a curfew now, and they said it's dangerous for you. And you're like, they come back and they're like, what? We can't go out at dark. We don't have the freedom to walk to our houses. No, you can't do that. It's breaking the rules. And it's like they've tricked the hobbits into thinking that they're safer with all of these rules. And they say, no, you got to take some dominion. You have to have the courage to stand up against tyranny and to say, no, we do have some freedoms. We do, we can fight for these things that are right. And so I think that chapter is one of the best chapters in the book, nearly, because
it bookends. This is a quote I sent to y'all the other day that's in Concerning the Hobbits at the very beginning, and it's talking about the hobbits and that things are peaceful. And it says, and there in that pleasant corner of the world, they plied their well-ordered business of living, and they heeded less and less the world outside where dark things moved, until they came to think that peace and plenty were the rule in Middle-earth, and the right of all sensible folk. They forgot or ignored what little they had ever known of the Guardians, or of the labors of those who made possible the long peace of the Shire. They were, in fact, sheltered, but they had ceased to remember it. And I heard that, and I was just struck by how that so describes the situation that we find ourselves in as Americans and as evangelicals. Like there were all of these people who fought either literally in wars or figuratively in theological battles and cultural battles to achieve peace, a well-ordered society, a well-ordered structure, and we were sheltered because of it. And we forgot that we were sheltered, and we weren't vigilant as a people, and we didn't maintain the borders because we knew that dark things moved on the outside. And so just being a people that's aware that we live in a world that's opposed to peace, and so peace is something that has to be fought for and maintained. Freedom has to be fought for and maintained. It's not something that just we passively keep because that's the rule of the land. No, that we don't live in the new creation yet in full, and so everything's going to trend the other way. So anyway, I read that and I was just struck by, I think this is where we are. Like this is the reality, that we've moved past the peace and the darkness has crept in. And so part of our job as good hobbits is to push the darkness back.
Right. We need to be good hobbits.
Be good hobbits.
And
I'm short and have hairy feet. Does that count?
Yeah.
You're already a dwarf, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess you're a hobbit too. Isn't there this theme that runs through the books that the idea that as they move forward through the adventure, they know that they can't go back to the way things were. They're never going back to the Shire. And there's always this callback to, like, Sam tells Frodo a lot, like, can you call back and remember? But Frodo knows, like, it's never going to be the way it once was. It's never going to be the way it used to be. And that's a sad theme running through it, but it's also that reality check of, like, you're right. It's never going to be the way it used to be. And that's okay. And in one way, they go from one glory to another. Like I said, they come back as these kind of regal, uh, uh, king-like figures in the Shire, and they put things back to right, and they're better, though they're always twinged with this. They're haunted by some of those memories of their adventure, but they know that they're never going back to the way things were. It's only moving forward. And again, that's another theme we could take and run with it, and say how much more in our life, right, brothers? Like we gotta say, let's not look behind. Let's not look at past days. Let's not wish for something. A 1980s America. There's no better time to be alive. No better time to be a Christian than now. The Lord Jesus is on his throne. He's progressing his kingdom. We believe in progressive sanctification. We need to be about the hopefulness of, let's fight the battles God has put in front of us now. Like let's not wish we were somewhere else. Let's not be on the adventure and say, man, wouldn't wish we would just be back there. That keeps you ineffective in the fight now. And instead saying, okay, but it's bad, but let's think how we can make this better. Like how can we be doing the things that we need to be doing right now, to bring some of that peace here now. So yeah, don't be a nostalgia is a killer. Honestly, like nostalgia is a killer.
That's what
Don't sit
Solomon
back
says.
and wish.
Solomon says, "Why were just do not say why were the former days better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask this." So we're not looking backward and saying where are the good old days. That's not wisdom. And I think in the books you see the hobbits are constantly looking back, but they are regularly being moved towards a position where they realize there's no hope of truly going back. And Sam's like the last holdout.
Mm-hmm.
Sam's like the one who's holding on to his memory of the Shire for as long as he can. And then in Return of the King, when he finally has to admit to himself, we're not really going back. I mean, it's like, it's at that moment where they finally, where he then he then is heroic there on Mount Doom and saves the cause and all those kinds of things. But I've never thought about this before, but it's when those moments match up. Like whenever he's not trying to go back to something that was, but then he's fighting for what something could be. I mean, he makes that final turn, and then you have the final conflict at Mount Doom. So yeah, I think that's a good point, Stephen.
Yeah. Well, it makes me want to go watch some movies and read some books.
Yeah.
Which it felt like we were dogging on the movies at the first.
Yeah,
They're
probably
great movies.
Yeah, they are.
I
Really
mean,
good.
like
you haven't seen extended editions, you just need to go.
Apparently,
do it.
I haven't.
It's like an extra 4.5 hours of film total. It's like it's unbelievable, and all of the special effects, all the special features on every one of those films is like a total of 12 hours. If you watched every disc's special features of how they made the movie, which is fantastic in itself. I mean, it really is incredible. So,
and the special effects hold up for being 20 years old. Like they hold up as far as great looking movies. The 3 Hobbit movies look awful.
They're trash.
But
there is a
series is garbage.
CGI. They used mostly live characters in the movie, and that set them apart. The amount of work they put in for costumes, for characters, to bring in the amount of people. They weren't just content with let's just CGI all the main characters. Let's film this in a green studio. No, they were like building sets, and they were on set. They were live, in New Zealand, building Theoden's Hall. Like they were in it. I mean, that's movie magic. That's manpower at work to build something truly epic. Yeah, all the cop out, let's just green screen everything. It all looks great. It's like, no, it really.
Well, I mean, even in even in the Hobbit movies, though, like the guys who play the dwarves, they do this like weird effect on them where they almost look fake.
Yeah,
like there's, Thorin will look at the camera and there's like this shimmering on his face, and it's just weird. And the thing that's crazy is Peter Jackson directed both.
Right.
So like he did the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and then he did the 3 Hobbit movies, which again I've obviously expressed my dislike for them. And it's like, man, I get it. You're gonna make a ton of money. At least do them well. Like you already did the first 3, exceptionally well, and then it was kind of just like a, I don't know, like a crapshoot to do the Hobbit movies, and it's like, I don't know, it's just disappointing. Someone else needs to redo them.
Well, so they've got the Amazon show, not a sponsor. But then they're also doing like the Hunt for Gollum or something like that, and Peter Jackson's involved in some capacity.
Yeah.
I have no expectations for that whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the Tolkien estate sold out, and now it's going to be like Star Wars. And
the irony of taking The Hobbit, which is a single book, and taking
the shortest of the 4,
written for children,
making 4 movies, right?
3 movies.
Okay, so he took it and made it 3.
Yeah.
How I can see how you might divide the book into halves, because there's kind of a first part, second part. The whole point, and you just know that they made that 3rd movie, it was like this big money grab. Like let's draw this story out, and let's just make this big last epic movie when we really don't have any precedent for it in the book.
Yeah,
and it's all just going to be a bunch of
the Battle of 5 Armies is like one chapter, and it's basically like, and the 5 armies fought. Like, I mean, it's not that short, but it's pretty short.
It's pretty short.
It's really short. It's really insignificant in the whole grand scheme. And it's like the whole point of the Hobbit book is to say no to greed. It's like greed is staring you in the face. Don't take it. And what do? Peter Jackson's like, you know what'd be great? The whole enterprise. Like, you know what? Everybody's gonna see it. Billions of dollars. Like, let's just go ahead and make a 3rd movie. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Which
could the irony be thicker?
Full admission here. I saw all 3 in theaters of The Hobbit, and I own the extended edition of all 3. So
I have the 15 disc Blu-ray collection of the Lord of the Rings. So it's got there's like an ungodly amount of special features that are in that thing.
Oh yeah, well I've got the Ultra Platinum hang on my wall. Lord of the Rings signed by Gandalf the Grey.
I don't even have a Blu-ray player, but I've got the Blu-ray disc. So there you go. Dude, so I'm sitting here thinking about it. I had to have watched the extended edition because and I don't remember that scene because I remember very vividly. They're in what's that for? It's at the end of the movie, and it's where Boromir dies. What's the forest called? I can't think of it.
Is it Amohen?
Yeah, that's it. Yep, Amon Hen. Yep.
Yeah.
So they're there, and Legolas is standing on top of that structure where Boromir and Frodo were, and he just like starts, shoot. The dude. So in the regular movie, he shoots 4 arrows. In the extended edition, I think he shoots like 10. He just keeps going, and you're like, I can just watch this all day. So I remember that, and I know that's from the extended version. So I guess I totally missed the trolls. I gotta go back and watch it now.
All right.
I'm watching next Friday.
We've done a lot of like conversation about the literature, the books, and the things like that. All right, let's get real like lame here. What's your favorite like scene from the movies?
Ooh.
Like you watch that, and I'm thinking like it's got to be like a battle scene or a death scene, like that 12-year-old Alex, Stephen, and Nathan were watching, and we were like,
What if the scene I watch now still makes me feel like I'm the 12-year-old kid going, yeah?
Even better. Better, because I'm the same.
Man, the scene. It's hard to beat the scene in the 2 Towers when Gandalf comes over the hill.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like that's just epic, bro. They're losing the battle, and I watched it a year ago. I don't know, we were doing Beast Feast. Steven and I were cooking, and we just had it like, kind of passively playing, and I think we both just like stopped and like, wait, we got to watch this scene. Like we already know what's happening. But it's just so epic. I mean, you're losing the battle. It's a struggle. Everyone's dying. you've got Theoden and Aragorn who are saying, "Ride with me,"
Mhm.
and they start to ride out, knowing that they're gonna die.
You got the epic
You know,
like choir song
Yeah.
going on in the background.
yeah. And the sun comes up, and they they hear Gandalf's voice, "Look to me when the sun rises," and then dude, it
Mhm.
just
Mm.
I don't know. That's tough to beat. That's just epic.
Chills, literal
Yeah.
chills.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
so legit.
Yeah, I think my favorite. I think the one that crystallizes my mind. Also, Helm's Deep, which I think is my favorite battle.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
Helm's
for sure.
Deep is the
Yeah,
best
it's like
battle
an
of
hour
all.
long. It's
Um,
So good.
it's when Legolas skateboards down the stairs,
yeah,
firing arrows.
yeah,
And then he and Gimli are competing for the number of Uruk-hai that they're going to kill, which is faithful to the books. Which I was surprised by. I was thinking, oh, that's something they added. No, in the books they legitimately are like trying to best each other in how many Uruk-hai they can kill. So anyway, his skateboarding down the stairs, popping over.
My favorite scenes are as well from Helm's Deep. And you won't find this out unless you go watch the extended editions, and if you go watch the special features. But here's a fun fact: when you're watching Helm's Deep, right, and all of a sudden, right before the battle, it starts to rain. That is legit rain that they did not plan on. They're filming the battle, and they planned to film it with no rain. They needed to film it before the rain came, and they were watching. And it started to rain as soon as the battle scene was going to start, and they decided to let the cameras roll, and everybody just acted through it.
Oh man,
100 orcs dressed up, slipping in the mud, trying to climb up the fake Helm's Deep. They just were like, let's just keep filming, and it was solid gold because the rain, I think, made the entire scene.
so epic.
Yeah,
it was like
sure.
if God was not looking down and saying, you know what, I like what you're doing here. You're honoring my boy Tolkien. So what? I'm going to throw a little epic rain because I know a good battle when I see one, and this is going to be good.
Listen.
And then you get the whole interaction between Legolas and Gimli, where he's like, "I can't see. Would you like me to explain it to you? I can get you a box."
Yeah, box.
Oh.
Yep. So, and then the other, to piggyback off that, I think, talking about Legolas and sliding down the stairs in the third one, Return of the King, when he kills the giant elephant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, I remember being in the theater. I was 13, and everyone just starts clapping, which I actually kind of hate.
Yeah, don't clap in movies.
They can't hear you. Like, it's stupid.
Yeah.
But everyone clapped because it was just dope. Like, I mean, he kills this elephant, he slides down the trunk, jumps off, and it's just kind of like, yeah, whatever. It's chill. So.
That still only counts as one.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
That's good.
How are we going to wrap this up?
So as we can wrap it up this way, I guess. I don't know, maybe not a good wrap up, but I'm just been sitting here thinking, since you talked about Aslan earlier. So, Aslan goes to the altar and he gets sacrificed, and then he comes back and all that stuff, and then they kill the White Witch and whatnot. Gandalf is very similar, right? He fights the Balrog in the first movie, goes down to what can be considered Sheol, and then comes back as the White Wizard in white robes of righteousness. I don't know. I'm just saying. Just a thought off the cusp.
So no like follow-up question. You're just
no, that's it. No, okay. I'm just been thinking. It's just what I've been thinking about. Like this, ever since you said something about Aslan, I was like, huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, he falls down into the depths of Sheol, defeats the demon beast.
Mm-hmm.
Comes back.
Balrog.
Yep. I don't know. Kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how to end this other than go watch. How about this? If you haven't read the books, if you actually lasted for an hour and 3 minutes and you listen to this whole thing,
on one speed,
just like awesome. You're a true fan. You must, I don't know, you must really love us.
Hey, leave some comments. Donations are welcome. Maybe go to our Patreon website, which we don't have
that
yet. Alex is going to put one together tonight.
No.
Go to our patreon.com and support us, because we're a bunch of starving people. No.
Feed the kids. So
children.
Yeah, if you've lasted this long and you're going, man, I've never read those books or watched the movies. 1, shame on you. 2, go read them. Then go watch the movies. I don't know. Is it better to watch the movies first and then read because the books are just so much better and the movies are also really good? Because y'all both
If you're
watch the
one,
movies before reading the books, right?
if you're
I read the
one that
books and then
doesn't,
watched the movies.
I would say if you're one that's not that doesn't lean towards these epic tales or kind of fantasy, then maybe just go watch the movies and see if
Mhm.
you get into it. And as you get into the story, go back and maybe fill in the gaps with the books.
Yeah.
And you'll see the differences. But I think you'll appreciate the storyline with the movies. At
Yeah,
least
the
Lord of the
the
Rings.
movies kind of serve as the Cliff Notes version
Mhm.
of the
Yep.
books because they
Sure.
really are like there's discrepancies, but they really are faithful to the overall storyline. Um, but it's kind of like, okay, watch the movies and then come back and read the books, and then every time you go back through, you'll see a little more and you'll appreciate a little more than you did before. Um, and that's what I appreciate about Tolkien's world building is it
Mhm.
makes reading through it again worth it because then you start to get a broader and deeper appreciation for what's happening in the story. So, yeah,
Yeah, and
takeaway, go
if
read.
you go listen to them, you can listen to them on audiobook too. They've got them for free on Hoopla. If you go, pro tip, they have two versions. I can't remember who the first guy is, but he's really old, kind of dry.
Rob Ingalls.
Yes, Rob
Yes.
Ingalls. The second one, the other version that I would recommend, is done by Andy Serkis. He is the voice and also actor of Gollum in the movies, and he just does a really good job. And if you don't listen to anything, go listen to Riddles in the Dark from The Hobbit with him narrating it, because it's fantastic because he does the Gollum voice throughout the narration of the book, and it's just really well done. So, yeah, y'all have anything else to add?
No, this was fun.
This was really fun. This was
For all
like,
three people listening, it doesn't matter.
yeah,
This was
that's
fun.
right. Yeah.
It was fun. I
Uh,
forgot we.
if you got to the end of this, the code word is Tom Bombadil, and if you text me that, I'll send you like a clapping hands emoji or something to know that you
No,
listened
you
to it.
got to do that.
You buy him
You
a
got
cup
to
of
do.
coffee,
Get
something.
exclusive.
Maybe I'll give you
You'll
like a
get
sticker.
exclusive.
I'm ordering some logo stickers, so maybe I'll give you a sticker.
That's
You're gonna get merch.
Yeah,
Bro,
it's
You're
20
doing a good
bucks.
job, host.
Thanks.
Patreon.com. Leave
All right.
comments in the leave a 5-star review. Comments
Oh
in
yeah,
the
with the bell, ring the
comments.
bell. I was told this. I'm not on social media, but apparently that's the thing you do. Ring the bell for
Don't know.
notifications. So do that so you know when new episodes drop.
All right. I think we need to close with each of us adding our
Far over.
no, not that.
The
Um,
misty mountains. Oh.
So you need to offer your sword. I need to offer my bow, and you need to offer your axe.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's really good. Steven, you're the sword, bro.
They can't see us, dude, so you got to say it.
You have my sword.
And my bow.
And my ox. All right. We're nerds. See y'all later.
See you next time.
Bye.